Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I am thrilled to be here facilitating this discussion with some incredibly talented women in the technology field. My name is Shauna Boring, and I am the Global Director of Communications at AgileThought. And here with me, I have Tami Booth, Vice President of Global Presales at Dell Technologies, Beth Howen, Executive Vice President of Public Sector and Defense at Atos, Christy Erbeck, Chief People Officer at AgileThought, and Ursula Strahm, Client Services Director at AgileThought. Thank you, ladies, for joining me today.
Thank you for having us.
It's awesome being here.
Well, I'm so excited. But before we start, I did want to mention, for those of you tuning in live, if you have any questions for our panel, please just post them in the chat and we'll get an answer to you right away. So I heard we have a birthday today. Christy, happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Cheers.
Are you doing anything fun, Christy?
We went to Las Vegas last week.
Nice.
So that I could be here today with you all on my birthday to celebrate. So we went to Las Vegas. It was a surprise trip, and it was the most fabulous time.
That's awesome.
Well, happy birthday, Christy.
Thank you, Beth.
That's awesome. Well, as I was considering the direction of this conversation that we would have today, I was shocked with the many statistics around women in the tech sector. For example, from some of the research that I did, CompTIA, the Computing Technology Industry Association, found that women represent only 34% of 7 million tech sector jobs in the US. From a study done on a comparison of women's retention in STEM or STEAM and professional occupations, published by Oxford Academic Social Forces, 50% of women are leaving the tech workforce after about 12 years, compared to 20% in non-tech positions. So I think it's safe to say that you ladies are in the minority in this case. Not only do you happen to hold a position in the technology space, but you're also senior leaders in your companies. For our brief time together today, I would like to set up this conversation for our viewers to hear an authentic conversation about your own experiences. There's power in your experience and what all of us can learn throughout our careers. Everyone has a story, whether it be a difficult road to success, constantly facing imposter syndrome, or landing the one female seat at the leadership table. I would love to see us provide some real advice for women and men and enable them to accelerate their own careers and support each other in the process. So to start, maybe we can start with you, Beth. Would each of you share a pivotal moment in your professional life that made an impact on you and how you show up every day in the technology field?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So I think my pivotal moment was several years ago when I first started off in the technology business. I was only 12 at the time, as you guys can imagine. But I was a young CIO in a large state, and I was at a CIO roundtable, and I was with there were 12 people on this roundtable. I was the only female, and I was also by far the youngest. And when I walked into that room, we were having a discussion, and I noticed that all of the more mature white gentlemen that I was sitting with, they all called me sweetheart. And I decided then that they weren't taking me seriously. And so it's been a commitment of myself ever since to really help young women and older women as well to find their confidence and find their voice so that they can succeed in a man's business, which IT has been in a really long time. So that was my moment. And I kind of hang on to that because I decided I wasn't ever going to be called sweetheart unless it was by my husband again.
Wow.
I love that.
Yeah.
Tami, what about you?
You know, somewhat similar, probably not as nice as Beth, and she knows me quite well, but I was this kid from Oklahoma that was given a chance by one of those white men, by the way, to actually elevate my career at a decently young age. And I too sat at this huge, I will never forget it. It was in Plano, Texas. And it was this huge mahogany table with the big chairs with the backs, you know, the whole line, you know, it felt like, and I was like this little thing in there, and I'm not that little, by the way, but, and I was the first one in the room because I wanted to be on time and all of that. And then they all filed in and sat down. And one of the gentlemen, who I didn't know most of them, sat down next to me and he was like, "Oh, will you be taking notes?" And I said, "Actually, no, but I'll loan you some paper."
Good for you.
Love it.
So, you know, sometimes it's just context. Luckily, I had the guts to do that. But I tell you what, afterwards, I thought, oh my gosh, who did I just say that to? You know, that imposter syndrome that you talked about, you know, that instantly hit. Oh my gosh, should I even be sitting at this table? But obviously, since then, you know, I've definitely sat at a lot of those tables. And I, like Beth, try to help anybody in there, male, female, black, white, it doesn't matter. Elevate them if I can feel they don't have that voice that they need to have.
Yeah. Yeah. Great story.
Christy.
Well, for me, I'm going to go back a couple of decades and think to the time where I was appointed the director of sales and marketing for a technology startup that was incubated by a $2 billion company. And being the youngest person on that executive team, being a female, we had one other female in that at that time, but she was much older. But still, the fact that they chose me, and then I had to step into shoes, some pretty large shoes, to become a director of sales and marketing for an internet startup within a $2 billion company is a big deal. And it was actually more of an internal struggle for me of my identity and how did I want to choose to show up into this space. And what I had to wrestle with was being enough. And I actually changed my name. So from a standpoint of my given name is Christina. And I, up to that point, all of my work and my jobs, I had been known as Christy. And I was given some advice that if I change my name to Christina, my given name, then that would fit my brand and that would fit, and people would think that I was older than I was, that Christy was a very young name. And I did that. I took that advice and kept that name for about 3 years and realized that by keeping that name, I was keeping so much of who I am and what I offer to the world from the world. So I kind of went through my own identity crisis and had to figure out how to be okay with being Christy in the business world and in executive leadership positions.
Yeah, it's really great, Christy. You know, I kind of had that same crisis of confidence, you know, or the identity crisis when I went through my scenario, because when that incident happened, you know, when they were all calling me sweetheart and I realized that they were not taking me seriously, I decided then that I needed to be more masculine to be taken seriously. I stopped wearing stopped wearing skirts and dresses to work. And for probably 10, 20 years, I didn't wear skirts to work and I didn't wear dresses to work because I wanted to try to level out my femininity, you know, so that I blended in better, so to speak. And so I embrace it now, just like you have. And so I'm glad to see and hear that you go by Christy again.
Thanks, Beth. Well, and I'll just say I did a similar thing, Beth. I went from I wore skirts, but I wore suits the whole time. And then I often wore pantsuits. Yeah. And then the other thing I did is, you see all these curls, I cut my hair off and I went to a pixie cut and had that very austere look to try to fit in and be less feminine, because there's no getting around the femininity with my hair, and it's natural. I can't straighten it. So I found that it was hard to be taken seriously with curly hair, and that just is insane, because again, the curly hair that I have is part of my appeal. It's part of my my personality and my personableness and my empathy and my heart. And I am
Yeah.
a whole brain thinker, and I bring everything, all of me, heart,
Yeah.
mind, and soul into what I do. Um, and so I'm so glad that I let my hair grow out, and that was not a permanent decision that I made.
Yeah. Yeah. Good for you.
Ursula, can you share your pivotal moment?
So I was actually thinking back, and I feel like I was, for a good part of my career and going through college, very blessed. I studied engineering, electrical engineering, and I was in a world of men. Not only was I in a college degree that was very much a men world, but I was in a military school as well. So it was all surrounded by men. I feel like I was very sheltered. Like a lot of the men around me were just good men, and they always, I felt like they valued me, and I was given room to be who I was. Eventually, I moved into my career, and my first couple of jobs, I had really great managers. They were all men as well, white men. And I remember one time, one of my managers, we were having a discussion about solving some problems. It had to do with how we would restructure the team. And he said something along the lines of, "How did you think of that?" And I was like, "Well, I have a womb." And he said, "Oh, I wish I had a womb as well." But then thinking, fast forward some years, I kind of like expected that that was the way that it was. Switch jobs, and then I ended up myself in a place where I remember just at that point I was still a developer. I will do like some commits to the code, and the source code manager will always come back to me and just kick them back. And there was like no real reason for why that was happening. So I had to really stand up and say, "Hey, what's going on?" and have a conversation. So it's yeah, that's, I guess that's my pivotal moment. And from that point forward, I said I really always have to make sure that I give everybody a room to be who they are and give them the benefit of the doubt, and
Yeah.
not only whether they're women or men or whatever background they come from, is everybody has a voice. And that was my thing, is, when I was able to I was given room to be who I was and grow, which allowed me to become who I was, and I needed to do the same because I could compare what the difference was between those two different environments.
Yeah. All of those stories are so powerful, and you all touched on similar subjects around, and this is actually going to be one of my questions around just kind of the stigma that many times females, in order to rise into specifically leadership positions or to be in a man's world, you must become more dominant or leave your natural nurturing characteristics at the door. So how, when you think about encouraging professionals, young or further in their career, how would you advise them to, say, increase their confidence or to show up fully and embrace who they are, to impact the world around them?
So
Tam,
something that
go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, go
Something
ahead.
that something that I have told all the young people and the more mature people that I have mentored over the years is to, quite frankly, find a mentor, find the person that you can talk to, find the person who is your sounding board. Because when you lose that confidence or you kind of lose that voice, you need to be able to call whoever that person is and have a conversation, because that person will help rise you up. And so it's really important to have a mentor. And I personally have more than one mentor. I have a male and a female, quite frankly. And so it is, find that person, whomever that person is, because they are your sounding board. They will help you find your voice when you can't find it on your own.
That is, and it's so true, Beth. It very much so to this day, and being in this industry for more than probably many of the viewers have been alive. I can tell you something this week for that, right? That I had a situation where I was, again, on the phone with a lot of men that have much louder, booming radio voices, and I have a pretty good voice. And you just can't get a word in edgewise, and you just kind of feel like you're getting beat down, You're like, I just want to say something, and you don't get that opportunity to. And then I have this amazing sounding board that I work with. We're actually peers in my organization, and I'll call her and go, ah! And she's like, calm down, send an email out about what you wanted to say. You're probably going to get better feedback from it, So I'm with you to this day. It is absolutely something that we have to have, that ecosystem, a board of directors, I call it, around us, to make sure that we have those people that can help lift us up every day through anything that might come up, no matter what the situation is.
That's great. Christy or Ursula, do you have anything to add to that?
I totally agree that having, I mean, again, I was blessed that somebody actually that was my manager became my coach by default. But when I lost that person, I had to find others. And it depends on the time of your life where you are, who are around you. It might not always be the same person, but you're going to find people wherever you go, people that I guess you have a chemistry or connection to. And I think approach people and just say, hey, can I just run this by you? I don't remember the time that anybody told me no. No. And so and you know, also I guess the other way around, just be that person for others as well. I will say catch people doing something great. Because so many times I remember just hearing a positive feedback or a thank you just made my day. So be that for that person as well is, I think, important.
I would totally agree. And I would also say that not just mentorship, but advocacy, I think, is important in the workplace. And while I might not have had specific mentors, I've had a tremendous number of advocates that were really paving the way, and they were all shapes and sizes, colors, genders, paving the way for me, being a voice for me, whether I wanted them to or not. It was just something that they felt compelled to do. And that type of advocacy, and I've done that myself for others. I think that's incredibly important, that I often can see in others what they can't see in themselves. And I'm sure that other people can do that for me as well. So being that advocate, having those advocates around you, and asking for help. Because yes, like Ursula said, people want to help you. It's a matter of helping them understand how, and that you're open to that help.
Would you suggest when you talk about asking others for help or assistance or to be your advocate, would you suggest, specifically laying out what you would like to accomplish? I feel like a lot of times you're fearful of saying, this is how far I want to go. Can you help me get there? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
I absolutely think it's important for people to, in your circle, in that board of directors, I love that concept, Tami, that they know. And some people are going to know more than others, but that people know where you want to go, what your ambition is. Ambition is not a bad word from a female perspective, but oftentimes we're afraid to step into that because of the perception others might have of us for that ambition. So I do think it's really important that we let our square squad, so I'll use a Brene Brown term, the square squad know what is it that we're looking to achieve, how far do we want to go, and then finding those folks that can help us along the way. And people may not be able to do everything, but identifying what they could do to help, I think, is important. And then if they know that, most likely they're willing to reach out and help.
And I certainly think I would love for Tami to talk about the board of directors for the audience, because I think it's a really phenomenal concept. But I also think it's really important as women executives that it's our responsibility to be that advocate for somebody else, for us to reach out to those people who need it. When we see somebody who might have been in our shoes, 5, 10, 20 years ago, that we offer to be that advocate and that champion for them as well.
That's great. Tami, would you like to share about this board of directors concept a little bit further?
Absolutely. So I think it's extremely important for everyone, no matter where you are within your career, to surround yourself with the people that all of these ladies are talking about right now. We need that to continue to lift us up, to help us get to that next place that we maybe even don't know we want to go, by the way. Right? Some people can see things in us. Christy, I believe that was you that mentioned that. They can see things in us that we may not even see ourselves. I've had plenty of my advocates do that for me. But one of the most important things that I try to do, and I really wish 20 plus years ago that somebody had done for me, or I had known to ask, is actually help promote my younger mentees to understand how to surround themselves with that board of directors, to have these sounding boards, to have the people who are going to be bluntly honest when things come up, when challenges come up, or be that person to listen to a scenario or a situation and help you through how to overcome that, or even help you make that next contact. I have a young lady that actually, she's not really that young. She's not that much younger than me, but she's a very introverted type person. You take those personality tests and she's the E, or excuse me, the I. And I'm, of course, the E. But anyway, and so she doesn't have that wherewithal to say, I really need to go introduce myself to this SVP because she or he is running a part of the business that I have an interest in. And so building up her to that SVP can be the next part of her board of directors. There's really limitless amount of people that can be a part of it, but you want to have some solid structure, some solid people that you know you can always count on. I had a situation recently as an example that's a person in my board of directors. I haven't talked to him in over a year and I needed a favor for something. And I texted him and said, can you talk? He said, absolutely, give me 5 minutes, I'll get off this call. Boom, we were on the phone like we hadn't even missed a beat. That's what's important for all of us. And it doesn't matter your age or where you're at within your career path. I mean, I'm even at the point myself where I'm contemplating taking a little bit of a step back even to say, hey, I'm ready to now enjoy life a little bit more rather than working 17 hours a day because I'm global. How do I get help with that? How do I make sure I'm not doing the wrong thing? That board of directors is absolutely what is going to step in there and help us. And we've got some suggestions, I believe, Shauna, if I remember correctly, that we can maybe share with all of you, and glad to take questions on it because everyone's board of directors will look different, but just build it. That is the key.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the goal of your board of directors is that it's filled with a diverse group of people that can help you with different things at different times in different scenarios. So I love that concept. Yeah.
So that's fantastic. And Tami's right. She sent over a document that she's used and someone sent to her, and it's just been going through the network, and we'll be happy to share that with you. One of the questions kind of building on that is I feel like, at least from my experience, that that taking the time to invest in yourselves sometimes is very hard to do, and it can be scary. So you kind of postpone it, put it off. Do any of you ladies have suggestions for our viewers on whether it's setting aside the time, when you focus on it? Do you make sure that you're focusing on this network on a regular basis, a weekly basis, time on your calendar? Any thoughts on that?
Schedule it. Put it on the calendar.
Yeah.
Call it what it is, and make it an important appointment. So I think when I first started scheduling that time for myself, I would allow myself to schedule over it because I didn't find my time with myself very important. I would prioritize others over myself. So you have to decide that you're going to meet with yourself, whether it's on a weekly or a monthly basis, and make that a priority appointment, and you don't miss it, and you invest in yourself because it's not a lot of time at the end of the day.
One thing that I will add to that is have somebody be accountable to somebody for it. So for example, share with your husband, hey, I'm going to schedule this meeting, and have him come back to you, because sometimes that really pins me down to make sure that I actually do it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I'm a mother of 3, and quite honestly, everybody else in this world takes priority over myself. So that hit home. That definitely hit home for me.
You need pantry time. And you have to go lock yourself in the pantry, have a cup of cookies all by yourself.
That's right. And a glass of wine, please.
Yeah, absolutely.
So kind of switching gears a little bit, have you guys seen a difference in how you lead and influence now that our workforce is so virtual? And do you think this changes your advice for women just starting out, and how, I think about just, walking by the water cooler and being able to interact, and how do you do that in a more virtual world now?
I'll jump in. I'm telling you, that's a difficult one, right? I don't care what anybody says. If they've got the answer to this, I'm listening myself. But it comes back to what Beth just said about schedule. Just make sure that you do go out of your immediate circle that you would normally spend time with to have that water cooler time. Pick one person. This is what I try to do. Pick one person a week that I don't normally talk to and get 30 minutes on the calendar with them and literally just shoot the, you know what, like just have a water cooler conversation. They will thank you and you will thank yourself, because it's almost this release, right? Of, okay, I didn't have to be on, I didn't have to be presenting. I didn't have to be on with a customer. It was just it's just kind of a release. That's one thing that also continues to build your brand and awareness that you're out there, right? And then for leading in it, it's more important than ever to do those skip levels and one-on-ones, whether it's up or down within the organization, because people get used to, and when we have promotions and that type of thing, they will take into consideration whoever they talk to the last several times. So just getting that time, whether it's to your boss's boss, or spending time with your individual contributors if you're a leader of people, I think is extremely important, if anything, for everyone's mental health.
Yeah. And I think that while we all love to see each other, and so I know that there's been a handful of times that because I don't always get out of bed and shower and get dressed like I used to, sometimes we're sitting in front of our computers in our pajamas with the hair on top of the head, in the afternoon. We stop ourselves from making that video call. So pick up your cell phone, call a friend. There's no better time in our lives than to pull that phone a friend card out on a regular basis. Find those half-hour slots of time and pick up the phone and call somebody and have a conversation. And I think, Tami, to your point, it's really important that you call up and you call down.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've started scheduling probably since the beginning of the year, at least one-on-ones randomly with agile thinkers throughout the organization, just to check in on them. And because I don't get to see them the way I used to see them. And now we have even more that are remote or in other countries that we can't travel to. And I so miss the just casual interaction. And I'm a hugger, so I miss the hugs. I miss reaching out to people and literally physically connecting with folks, as well as emotionally connecting with them. And I find I am revitalized after every time I talk to somebody that's just a random conversation, whether it's 15 minutes or 30 minutes. It's a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. And I will echo what Tami was saying about is your time to decompress where you're not actually on. And it is so important to have those conversations as well, where you're just allowed to be yourself at that moment with that person. And it happened to me actually by accident, I gotta say, this year, where I've had conversations with people that are not in my immediate circle. Like I had one-on-ones with my team and stuff. But those conversations have been the actual ones that have really helped me stay just connected and feel myself, I guess.
It's really easy. I feel like it's really easy to forget to take care of yourself and to forget the feeling that others can bring you in supporting you and being a sounding board, and it's easy to underestimate the need to decompress, to be quite honest, because we're always on. So one question I had was I'm sure all of you in your careers have experienced community building initiatives, if you will, women communities or just tech communities and things like that. Do any of you have an example of some of the most effective community building initiatives that you've seen in organizations that you would encourage other females to get involved in?
I'm looking to Christy because I really want her to talk about STEAM, if you're okay with that, Christy. Because I'm telling you, ever since you brought that to me, I've just been so excited.
Yeah, so STEAM is my passion. So STEAM stands for science, technology, engineering, arts and math. And I'm an artist, and I feel so compelled to advocate for arts in schools, in the work environment, in every aspect of our life, because it is what actually brings it all together. And we need the arts in our life in so many different ways. So for me, reaching out and making sure that there's a balance in that conversation is important. Ensuring that we are providing that outlet for people to express themselves creatively, in whatever way that means, because we can be creative in math, we can be creative in drawing or in singing or in so many other ways. That is just, it's a wonderful way to connect.
There's truly a proven connection between art and math.
Yes.
I mean, the artistic, the left brain, right brain piece. And I really find that interesting and something for you all to go even look up and make your own assessments of. But from a community standpoint, I think all of us are probably involved in one way, shape, or form with education and STEAM initiatives in what we can do within the schools. I know that's something that's near and dear to my heart, is to ensure to start earlier having those conversations with girls to let them know it's okay to be a coder. I was a coder when I was like 8 years old. And, you know, that's okay. And it's okay to keep doing that. And here's what it's going to bring you, rather than getting up into, which probably some of us, depending on our age, you know, your mom's, mine did, well, you should be a nurse or you should be a secretary or, you know, and God knows we need both of those things. But it shouldn't be something you're pigeonholed into, because that seems to be what women should do. And in this case, being able to elevate girls in education to ensure that they're aware of what you can become and what we've all become, I think is near and dear to my heart and something I try to do. I'm really glad in Oklahoma, they're back in school now, finally. So I'm finally going to get to go back into the schools, I hope, and be able to teach into some of these classes of what I do at Dell Technologies as a pre-sales engineer leader.
You know, one of those things that actually that brought to mind is I had experience of coaching an Odyssey of the Mind team, and it's exactly where you bring together, it's a team. You know, you're actually solving problems, and the kids have to build little gadgets to make things happen, and at the same time they have to come up with a script and a scenario. And it's very interesting to see, like, when you have teams of only boys, what they can accomplish where you have a diverse team of boys and girls. And I just love that kind of aspect. That experience helped me also become a coach, because in Odyssey of the Mind, you don't want to push for your ideas to happen. You want to get the boys and the girls' creative juices to come up and let them solve their own way. And actually, most of the times I was just pushing their parents away and saying, let them figure it out. They're going to come up with something even better than you even thought. And it was so rewarding to see when you let the kids be themselves and you know, try to bring their strengths into their conversation. And you actually also see the communication struggles. You know, communication is such a hard thing to do. And if you get kids to actually start communicating and working as a team, bringing their strengths and giving, I guess, with Odyssey of the Mind, the wide spectrum that it encompasses, it just amazing things happen. So that was one of a really amazing experience that I had. And I really encourage anybody that has kids to look into that. And if their school doesn't offer it, to maybe try to see if you can bring it on. It is a lot of time to become a coach for an Odyssey of the Mind team, but it's so rewarding. And I think it really does bring, it gives a kids a long term, like they see themselves doing things that they probably didn't expect before that they could do. And as a team building as well. So yeah.
I love that.
That's amazing. Beth, do you have anything you'd like to add on this subject?
Yeah, sorry, I just realized I was talking on mute. Atos has a lot of different diversity programs, but one of the things that we have done is taking the International Women's Day, which happens to be on March 8th this year, and we took a spin on that, and we actually hosted a Sponsor a Girl in IT Day, where some of our large account teams could sponsor a girl. And the first time we did it, we had 24 girls that came. And the purpose of that day was to give them a day full of exposure to other people, other women and men as well, and to have them understand the art of the possible of what STEM and STEAM bring. Because sometimes when you have young girls, they don't actually really even know what the art of the possible is. And so we wanted to provide experiences that had exposure to STEAM at every age group. We had an all-girls high school robotics team come in from a high school here in Austin, and they had won the competition, and they talked to the girls. We had a college group of girls come and talk to this set of girls. We had some professional companies came. Dell Technologies was there, and a couple of other companies, and we had a couple of men and a couple of women because we wanted to expose them to supportive executive men champions as well. We had a really, really great day that day to expose them. We did some of the things you were talking about, Ursula, and we did a couple of team building activities where we gave them a box full of cotton balls and batteries and, all kinds of things. And they had built team building exercise. They had to build things together. And it was a really, really great day. And I think when you're talking about young people, whatever you can do to expose them to the art of the possible, and the kinds of jobs and the kind of experiences that they can they can grow into is great.
I love that, Beth. I was a large account manager for a period of time, and I was with a client, and we were sitting down just talking about the project and how it was going. And he said, "Christy, did anyone ever suggest for you to go and become an engineer?" And that was the most wild thing anyone had ever said to me, because I don't think of myself in that way. And he said, "You would have made an amazing engineer." And there was really no one talked to me as a young person about those types of things. So I think it almost ties back to what Tami, you said earlier about the pigeonholing of folks. And so that, I felt very flattered that he thought that I would have an engineering mind, and I do have a very analytical mind and that very creative mind. But making sure that we are talking to our kids, our girls and our boys, about
the art of the possible,
and that it truly is anything's available to them.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's fantastic. Yeah, I have a daughter, a 7-year-old, and I had read a statistic recently that I think it's like 10 or 11. They think by the time they're 10 or 11, they've already decided basically, or turned off. Many girls have already turned off the possibility of, a science and math, that it's nerdy. And there's more and more popularity. She happens to be in a robotics team, in her elementary school. She's 7. But you're exactly right to just keep that open, and keep that as a possibility in their hearts and their minds, I think is so important. Mm-hmm. So I think we are about out of time. I have thoroughly enjoyed our conversation and appreciate all of your just candor and authenticity. But before we close, I'd love to just open it up to any of you on any closing comments or anything that you'd like to share as we close today.
I'll be glad to jump in. Oh no, Ursula, go ahead, please.
No, all I wanted to say was I think this has been an amazing experience for me to actually be able to meet all of you amazing women. And I think I'm going to add to that, board of directors right now. So this has been great. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. The one thing I wanted to throw in, Shauna and ladies, if you don't mind, is really about allyship. And we've talked about advocates. We've talked about, men and women advocates and that type of thing. And I know many of us brought up the fact that we sat down in a boardroom with all white men, but we all need to step up and elevate women and understand from all sides of the fence on what we can do to ensure that we take those girls from your daughter's age, Shauna, to all the way up, to make sure that they know that they can have these opportunities that we are all blessed with. And so it does take a village. So it takes all of you listening today to ensure that you help elevate that person, whether or not you're male, female, or unidentified. It doesn't matter. It takes us all to get there. So I did want to just push on that just slightly, because it's extremely important. For those of you who are men that are listening, thank you, because that means you've taken the first step to actually being educated on what you can do to help the next generation and the current. So thank you all.
I think that's really great, Tami, and I think I would add to that that if anyone is listening and you're wondering who do I call for that board of directors, or how do I get a mentor, or what's that first conversation like, I'm going to voluntold my little panel here and say, reach out with questions. I think any one of us would help have that first conversation with you to help kickstart. We'd be honored to do that, and it was a fantastic experience with you ladies today, and I hope that we do it again. So thank you.
Excellent.
Yes, thank you.
Well, I look forward to continuing this conversation. I could not agree with you more in all of your final thoughts, and thank you so much for adding that. For those of, like we said, for those of you interested in viewing the personal network document that Tami talked about, the board of directors, and any other questions or anything that you'd like to comment on, please just go ahead and do it in the chat. And ladies, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day in 2021.
You too. Virtual hug.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah.
Virtual hug.
Bye.
Bye.